Chapter 11. On the Ropes. The blows rained down like sledgehammers. Piccolo could barely block. He was driven back by every impact, feeling his bones groan under the weight. The pressure was suffocating. "I can't keep this up," he gasped, trying to compose himself. But that technique is taking its toll on him. Besides, its intensity has weakened considerably. Gravek charged with brutal force. A sharp knee to the gut, followed by a heavy overhead smash, sent him crashing into the ground. The Namekian slammed against the pavement, carving out a crater upon impact. His ki plummeted. Gravek watched him from the air, showing a sadistic sneer on his face. "This ends now." Seeing that he was preparing to finish him off, Halira shouted his name and launched herself into the air without hesitation. Behind her, Milana, Gavir, Ruisel, and dozens of inhabitants of Toria mobilized. Some were still trembling, but they all united in a common front: to protect Piccolo. From all directions, they began firing ki blasts. They weren't strong enough to damage him, but they were enough to attract his attention. Gravek grunted, annoyed, and fixed his gaze on them. A crackling glow formed in his hands. He launched a devastating attack toward the Torian formation. The explosion razed several buildings, sweeping the combatants away like leaves in a hurricane. Halira, at the forefront, took the full force of the blow and was hurled amidst the rubble. Her body rolled across the ground, leaving a trail of blood. In that instant, Gravek tensed up, puzzled, detecting Piccolo's renewed energy. Before he could react, dozens of small energy spheres materialized around him, hovering like a swarm of lethal fireflies. He spun around, eyes wide with shock. There was no way out. Normally, he could neutralize a concentrated attack with arcane suppression, but this wasn't a single attack. There were dozens, from every angle. "What?" he managed to say. The spheres converged at once, causing a deafening impact. The explosions completely enveloped Gravek, devouring him in a storm of energy. When the smoke dissipated, he appeared battered, panting, with his ki much weaker than before. Among the rubble, Halira remained motionless, her breathing barely perceptible. Beside her, Milana held her hand desperately. Then Piccolo, still suspended in the air, tossed a senzu bean down to her. "Huh?" she whispered, looking at it with surprise. "Give it to her," Piccolo ordered with a firm voice. Milana nodded. Carefully, she brought the senzu to her friend's lips. In seconds, a warmth flooded Halira's body. Her wounds closed, and her ki flowed clearly again. "Piccolo," she whispered. He did not answer. His attention remained fixed on the enemy. With a sudden heave, Halira sat up and looked at the sky. There, Piccolo remained suspended, with a cold and firm gaze. There was no trace of his wounds. He had used the distraction to consume a senzu and set his trap without being detected. Gravek opened his eyes in surprise. "You? How did you manage to recover?" Piccolo, looking at him coldly, replied, "Did you really think I'd stay down?" Gravek staggered. The suppression was still active, but its power had diminished drastically, and the gap in power between them had vanished. Now, every second that passed, Gravek weakened more trying to maintain the technique. Piccolo descended upon him with fury, chaining devastating blows together. Gravek tried to respond, but every defense was slower than the previous one. The pressure was overwhelming him. Halira and Milana watched the scene with an expression of astonishment and relief, seeing how Piccolo unleashed an implacable offensive. As the fight dragged on, Gravek's exhaustion became evident. His breathing was increasingly rapid, and his stance lost firmness. The Namekian's victory seemed imminent. At a certain distance, in the air, Trunks and Goten continued their ferocious exchange. Between clashes, a flash of humanity crossed Goten's empty gaze. His body stopped for an instant, trembling, as if fighting internally. Trunks noticed it immediately. "Goten?" he gasped, his breathing agitated. Goten brought his hands to his head, letting out a choked growl. His electric aura weakened momentarily, and a spark of clarity appeared in his eyes. Trunks edged forward slightly, hopeful. "Fight it, Goten! I know you're in there!" But Gravek's connection reinforced itself suddenly, snuffing out the glimmer of consciousness. Goten screamed with fury and threw himself back into the attack, even more aggressive. Trunks retreated, his heart pounding wildly. He was coming back to his senses, even if only for a moment, he thought, clenching his fists. Piccolo, taking advantage of his adversary's extreme exhaustion, unleashed a series of combined attacks. The Namekian left no room for recovery, overwhelming Gravek's defenses and forcing him to slip up. Every impact from Piccolo further sapped the villain's power and will. After a decisive blow, a wave of bright and pulsating energy extended from Gravek's body. The air itself seemed to vibrate, as if an electric charge had been released. Gravek's control over Goten shattered instantly. Goten collapsed, stunned, and his malevolent gaze vanished to give way to confusion. Simultaneously, the Torians controlled by Gravek came back to their senses. The magnitude of his defeat became evident. Gravek, exhausted, felt cornered. He saw Piccolo ready for a new attack, and Goten and Trunks advancing toward him. He curved his lips with irony, while blood trickled from his mouth. "Do you think everything ends with me? I am just the herald. The true master of darkness still remains in the shadows, and when he decides to move, your world will be the first to burn to ash." In his desperation, something snapped. A primitive instinct, forced by sheer stress, pushed his body beyond its limits. His entire frame began to thrum with an ominous power, a brute explosion of dark ki. Gravek's muscles swelled massively, his frame expanding with ferocious power. Veins bulged along his neck and temples, and his face twisted into a grotesque mask of agony. His eyes rolled back white, signaling the total loss of self and reason. This state transformed him into an unstoppable force, surpassing Goten and Trunks by far. His only objective centered on destroying the threat before him. Meanwhile, somewhere in a remote corner of the universe, a dark figure could be glimpsed among the shadows, observing the ferocious battle. Interesting. The dark energy has fused perfectly with his anger. His power has overflowed. Let's see how this plays out. In Toria, Piccolo warned with urgency. "His ki has skyrocketed. He is out of control. He doesn't seem like himself." Goten and Trunks looked at each other with consternation. They knew that a Gravek like this was too big a threat. His power had far surpassed what they expected. Goten swallowed hard, his expression tense. "Trunks! We can't stop him like this. He's getting too strong. We have to fuse." Trunks nodded, while his eyes burned with determination. "I know. Get ready." Gravek finally pushed his ki to the maximum. With a bestial roar, he completely lost all reason. The decisive battle was about to begin.